All right, everybody, let's have some fun. We're going to talk about the challenges and opportunities, some solutions, but challenges and opportunities in coaching coaches
Hmm.
and personal growth people. I figure we should lump those lovely folks, of which we are amongst their numbers in this conversation. But before I start sharing my thoughts and my uh, experience, what do you make up, or what challenges have you experienced in coaching personal growth type people or coaches?
Well, I've had fun doing it because
Great.
because I know that they know where I'm going with whatever we're talking about, right?
Fantastic. That's awesome. That's the awesome, one of the
Yeah,
awesome parts. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So there's not a sense of, oh, I wonder if I'm saying this right or whatever. So I'm very relaxed doing it, and I think it's a fun exchange. Typically, it is because then we kind of um, critique each other or whatever we want to call it.
You're doing so well by me right now by saying that, because we should start by saying, hey, coaching coaches and personal growth people can be so excellent because they often know where you're going, or they're game, they're pliable, they're hungry to learn. They're like, I've never done that before, but okay, if you know.
Mm, mm.
I know I'm getting some body work done, which it's like body and spiritual, and tears can happen. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'm great to do that with. Why? Because I'm game. It's like, hey Ron, I might poke you like this and tears might happen. It's like, cool. And so I know I'm a good client for this guy. Same thing for coaches. We've got our own version of that. So yeah, let's high five to all you personal growth people and coaches out there who will make it easy to work with. Then there's the challenging aspect that can happen. So if you have had any, let me know, and then I'll fill in some of the gaps that I've experienced over the years.
Well, I mean, I think it can almost be a double-edged sword because there's that air of like, well, I know all this stuff.
Yep, I know it.
Mm, mm.
And
Yeah.
and I know it, and therefore what? What is the implication of that, or the impact of it?
There's something there about like an acceptance of being stuck. I don't know how else to say it. Like I
Oh,
know
that's
all this
so
stuff and
good.
I'm stuck and there's just I'm just stuck. And I don't know how, like, an acceptance of that and less willingness to try to move out of the muck because I've tried it all.
Yes, yes, yes. I've got some words about that, but I agree completely. Fred, you're nodding your head over there. What do you got?
Definitely an element of ego in it. If I'm good at what I do, why do I need to go to someone else who's better at what I do to help me do what I do? Because, like, if I'm actually good at doing what I do, why would I need anyone else? And it's uh, yeah. So that can be a real knock to the confidence and to the ego. It's like, well, if I'm really good at this, why would I need to learn from someone else? Why would I need someone else to point out my blind spots? Because I shouldn't have any blind spots if I'm the expert.
Well, and you're pointing to both the problem and a solution too, which is sort of the problem being someone can be arrogant and I've got it all figured out, but they came to you because they wanted something. If presumably
Yeah,
you're coaching someone and it's like, oh, so what's the solution in there? Well, let's kind of hold back on that till we kind of grouse about some of the problems first.
yeah,
But you're on
because
it.
it takes vulnerability to
Yeah,
learn. Anything that we want to learn means accepting that we don't already know it. And
absolutely.
yeah, so it's stepping into that vulnerability. I also want to add about the uh, Dunning-Kruger effect
Oh, that's
that
great.
that we so the Dunning-Kruger effect is that you need to have a certain amount of knowledge or awareness of any subject to know whether you have knowledge or expertise in that subject area, or awareness, and it goes for self-awareness as well. So the people that don't have self-awareness don't know that they're the people that don't have self-awareness. So none of us, everyone thinks that they are self-aware, because it's it's very hard to know that you're not self-aware unless you have some external reference point.
Excellent. Yes. Yeah. Well, and like you were saying too, is there, well, and these are my words, but there's a vulnerability and a humility required to, I can't create this on my own, or I have not been able to, and I really could use some support. And then to submit to, so to speak, to that process is can be a big ask. And it might even be a big ask until it comes time to do the changing. And then all of a sudden that other stuff starts coming up. Here's what I wrote. What can happen is an arrogant ignorance. Now, I'm not an Orthodox Christian, we'll say, at this point, but I remember hearing when I would teach classes, people would say, well, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. And it's like, yeah, well, and, when I was a Christian, it's like, well, Satan is spiritual too, so it's like, I don't know if that's an upgrade or what it is, but what people can be is like, oh, I'm not this, I'm that. And so, there's a way that personal growth people can position themselves like they're more enlightened. I don't need either help or, no, Ron, actually what I need is more of this. And like, you don't get it. And it's like, yeah, but that's a great, all that is, we're going to hear in this is scams, ways in which people delude themselves or confuse themselves. And, what we can do with it is, well, there are a handful of things, but addressing it one way or the other is the thing. Defensiveness. Oh, I already do that. I think that was kind of either implied or what I was thinking about when Kara was talking. Oh, I already do that. Or, I do that in my spiritual or my coaching practice. And I joked back, oh, you're just not getting the result. Or, you're just, you do that already, but yet you're still in a bad mood, Jamie's here. All right, big guy. You have to share what you're walking away with at the end if you're going to be here. What a sippy cup. He's got a sippy cup. I need a sippy cup. That's what's going on here. All right. So yeah, we got the thing, the defensiveness, like, oh, I already do that, or I've already tried that, or it's like, well, wait, I'm trying to do a vision with here. And what it is, it's people actually not submitting to the coaching, so to speak. Backseat driver, they know it all, which was what Kara was pointing to. Oh, I don't really think I need that kind of process coaching right now. What I really need is this, and yet at the same time, that's the double-edged sword too, is because Georgette, if you're coaching me and you start saying, Ron, why don't we just slow down and like, just kind of unpack this and process this? I might say to you, Georgette, I think I've processed this. All I need, I think I really need now to just connect to myself and then do something. But certainly it's an energetic thing rather than, don't say those words. It's, people can find 100 ways to keep the coach at bay. We're just talking about how personal growth people, how it manifests with us folks. I don't want to talk about X. I want to focus on, this other thing. And, I asked my wife about, who's a coach, I asked my wife about, how does she see this? And she said, and I love this. This is a classic one is, oh, yeah, my homework. Oh, I didn't do that. But what I did do instead was this. And I laughed. I said, because this to me is the big deal. We get homework. We create accountability because after helping people connect to themselves in this most sober, most connected moment, they decide, not me, that X is what's going to take them to the next level or help them reinforce this thing. And then as the week goes on, which part of them decided that was no longer a really good idea? Which is so very typical. It's like, oh, I decided that I didn't really have to do push-ups, but as long as I visualize doing push-ups, I'm it's like, oh, okay, good. Yeah, I'm sure that's just as good. I wrote down here, their scams can work to keep them convinced that they've got it figured out while keeping you as a coach on your heels, unable to do what needs, everything is left undone, basically, keeping you from touching the sensitive spots. And so we're really just talking about how people manifest their scams, their highlight reel, so to speak. So I want to just hit on some solutions quick, and then we'll talk about some opportunities here, a la Georgette. Solutions. So first of all, let's choose some clients that have a sufficient enough want that keeps them humble. I know that I'm not an easy person to coach. On these calls it'd be one thing, but Georgette, if I hired you, I can be I'm fast. I'm relatively sharp. I talk and I want to, and I talk, I process out loud. And so, how do you coach somebody like me? Well, you've got to let me talk. But how much is too much? And it's like, well, what's at what point? So there's a lot to manage there with some folks for sure. But if I have a sufficient enough want, you can cut through that. Hey, Ron. I know there's so much here and it's precious. And you said you had to figure a way to lose 20 pounds on this call. So I'm cutting us short. Like, ooh, right. Thanks for bringing me back. You're right. So a sufficient enough want, big deal. If you have any concerns, and we'll keep using me as an example, you kind of find me like a little bit of a renegade who, might be tough to handle as a client. Share them. Talk about it during the first conversation. Hey, Ron, here's the thing is, you've been coaching for almost 30 years, 25 years. Hey, Ron, you were my teacher. So in some ways it's a little bit like, oh my gosh, I'm coach. How does that, we're going to make it even harder, right? We'll put it up there. I'm not quite, here's my concern is, that I'm going to be saying, let's do some visualizing here and you're going to correct me. Oh, baby's going down for a nap. Okay. That you're going to correct me, or that I'll feel my own little Ron on my shoulder judging that I should be doing this or that. But you don't have to do anything with it. Ron, what can we do about that? Georgette, I'm here to get coached by you. If you find me being a little bit hard to handle, just tell me, but I want to get coached. I got to lose this weight and I really want to do this other thing. Like, great. And now if you've had your concerns allayed by my articulated commitment, right now, now we can do some work. In the coaching itself, be courageous and dare to know what you know and say what you see. Take charge, right? Essentially, right? So again, we're talking about naming it. So if we're coaching and we're 3 months in or 2 weeks in and it gets funky, you got to have the courage to name it. Hey, Ron, we've, you've talked about you want this thing, and I keep trying to connect you to something that's going to move you to create what you want, which, again, if it's me, very well, Ron, that's what I've got to do. The last couple or 3 times I've done this now, you've been a little bit of a moving target where now we're going to heal this and now this is sad and now you feel like you took something personal. Now I'm thinking there's something here that's preventing you from doing it because I feel like I can't even get in there and coach you. Calling me out on being a little bit of a pain in the butt, but do that. Be humble. Don't get hooked. Ron's judging me. Ron thinks I stink. Yeah, Ron's demons are going to run you around and see if you got what it takes. In some ways, it's a push. Is Fred going to crumble if I'm talking and all over the place, or saying, Fred, I don't want to do coaching that helps me have a new perspective. I don't want to do that. Well, maybe that's just Ron being an educated client who doesn't want to go that road. You get hooked, you're no longer even part of the conversation. Fred, are you able to say, whoa, I get that, Ron? Like, what's the meta thing you're not wanting? Well, I don't want to feel better now. Okay, so what are you really wanting? Is what to kind of like just think about it, process it, unfold it? Yes. Great. Well, you wouldn't have got there if you got hooked, right? Making it all about you. Like I said before, encourage your clients to submit, let go, let themselves be coached. I can imagine a chiropractor going to a chiropractor. You know what? I really need like C6 to be moved. It's like, I will move things. Thank you for letting me know what hurts. I can see it right here, what needs happening. At some level, you got to let go and give into the process, Ron. So, encouraging them to just submit. I got you. You came here because you trust me, right? Did something change? No? Okay, great. Then let me do my thing.
I like, in scenarios like that, I really like naming. You like being in control, don't you?
You can, yeah. Oh, you got me.
That just opens up. Oh yeah, I'm doing that, aren't I?
Yeah. And if you got somebody who's, remotely self-aware, it's like, oh crap, I'm doing it, aren't I, Fred? You're doing it, Ron. all right, dude, just coach me.
Mm.
You know, be curious. So actually, Fred, if we were to turn this into my point number 6, be curious is, hey, Ron, what's going on over there? Here's what I'm experiencing is I'm trying to do this and it feels hard. What's going on over there for you? Like, what are you experiencing? You know, keep the main thing the main thing. What is the game you're playing that's bigger than the one that their ego is playing? So what can you call me forth to? Fred, what you said was great. And I offered another thing with the, being curious. Another way could be, Ron, again, I did this with you when I was playing with you, George. It's like, Ron, you said you wanted to lose 20 pounds. Like, that's what we're up to here. I know this story is probably important. I know you being really heard is important. But, even if, and maybe it makes its way out like this, but the thing is you remembering, ooh, yep, Ron told me he would be hard. Okay.
Mm.
The game we're playing is to help him do this. And if I don't help him break through his stuff and call him out on it, particularly somebody who's been coaching this long or has been, if you're coaching Tony Robbins, it's like, oh, somebody who's led seminars around the world, he chose you. So, I got to show up and got to meet this person. So, so I wrote down, if you touch these things, you'll bust through their ego and touch the person. And that's really what it's about is we're executing, or excuse me, exercising scams. That's what we're doing. We're getting them out of there and revealing the person. Here's the opportunities to be one of the few people to tell them no, or enough, or you can do better in a way that they can hear. And I'll keep using myself as an example. Like I said, I know that I can be a handful as a client, totally. And somebody like me who has never had a shortage of words, it was the way in which I controlled my environment for a long time, is just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk long beyond what I was either supposed to socially or what was necessary, but it was a way to keep people at bay, because if they said something, who knows what I could be exposed to. And how many people over the years are like, God, you talk so much, or you slow down, or stop. How much impact did they have on me? Now they just get in a line of other people who made me feel bad. And yet there came along probably mostly all women in my life who were like, what's going on? Or, maybe even acknowledging, there's a lot coming out right now. What is happening inside of you? And there was no make wrong, right? You're not bad or you're stupid. It was, kind of putting their arm around me and helping me see myself in a way that I could, right, see it. And like I said, no make wrong, and help pointing towards something better. So what's an opportunity to really help some hardcore people who've been around the block be exposed, Fred, like you were saying earlier, be exposed in their vulnerability, and maybe you can change them. And to me, the last couple of things come in quick succession. The other opportunity is you can change a life. But the other thing is, oh, they're a personal growth person, or they are a coach. Oh, then the ripple effect could be astronomical if you can help heal this person. So them's my thoughts on the matter. What's coming up for you guys?
Biggest thing that's coming up for me is it could be something that I need to work on, but I can't coach anyone if I don't believe in a bigger potential for them. I've only ever had one client that applies to, and basically we had it was coming up for renewal. He was open to renewing, and I said no, because I don't believe that you believe in a bigger potential for you, and I think you need to go to therapy first before we go back to coaching. And that was a bombshell for him, and he said, you're absolutely right. I know I've been avoiding it. I was hoping that this was a way around my problems rather than having to face them. And I mean, it took the entire session to really work this through, but the summary is that. So we parted company. But every other client I've had, however senior and experienced they might be, I always believe in a bigger potential. So when I point out the saboteurs and the different things that they're doing, it's always in a context that they know that I see something bigger in them, and it's not about putting them down and calling them out just to put them in the place or anything like that. It's because we've already established that context that I believe in the bigger thing.
Yeah.
And even if sometimes they come to me and say, this is the problem, and I'll say, actually, I think it's even bigger than that. Because I see all these other ways that you're holding yourself back.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I think it gets back to then is choosing your clients well, choosing somebody who's really open to, wants the coaching, is hungry for something, because that's what you can call them back to is, you want this. And if it is that big, if the want is sufficient, we can do this work. If there's not a sufficient enough want, well,
Yeah.
forget it. I won't renew and you won't want to coach me. So what do you think, Georgette?
Well, I'm kind of going back and forth between this and the don't. What I don't want. And I was just looking at that, and
The email that I sent Monday, you mean?
yeah, about what when people tell you what they don't want.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sort of going back and forth there. Am I coaching a coach or am I coaching a client here? I mean, if I'm coaching you and you say what you don't want, then I think that for me, what I have to be careful of is that I don't start mentoring, as opposed to just asking the very simple questions. And you've always been good at that. What do you want? And what will you do? What will you do? And that's just a simple thing that I feel like, I'm supposed to say more than that. I'm supposed to try to direct it. And as I say, then it becomes more mentoring. And I think that we probably all do use a little mentoring when we're coaching, but then I find that it all goes the wrong way. When I say the wrong way, I just mean that it's hard to get back to just the short questions and what will you do? It's very hard to come back there. So that's just kind of a thing that I know I have to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I mentioned before we started the recording about a client that I'm working with, and something I had said, that was more of a talk it through, brainstorm, like just two people doing that.
Yeah.
Very, very atypical for me. But, in that email, so just somebody who's watching later, I did an email. If you're on my mailing list, it's the email for the 18th. Yeah, 18th of November, 2024. And it was about, don't let your clients get away with, well, I don't want this, or this doesn't work for me. I don't like that. It's like, great, you got that. Use that as clarity to what do they do want, or what must they have in their life, right? Make sure you come around that corner. What was I going to say? I am a coach, and if you build me up as much as you want, well, Ron has traveled around the world. Ron has coached people from different cultures and language. Ron has been doing this for 25, 27 years. Ron, yeah. And then as soon as I sign on the dotted line, metaphorically or literally, I'm now your client. And it doesn't matter if I'm the Pope or whatever the heck I think I might be. I've got to be willing to, and I don't mean this, that sounds pejorative in any sense, but I have to submit or subject myself to that which is to your process. And to the degree that I won't submit to that, I'm not leaning into the relationship. And that has to get addressed, because then I'm going to be stuck in probably even, I don't know if this was part of the connection you were making. I will find a way to be comfortable in our conversations rather than put myself out there because something's not been popped or named sufficiently,
So what we're trying to determine here is if I'm coaching a coach, that, I mean, it is more of a challenge to challenge somebody like that is, they know what they're supposed to be doing and they're not doing it, and as a coach, yeah, I know it, I'm not doing it. So then, so then what? Then I, as a coach, am supposed to just work on that to try to find out more, and what will they do again?
Well, that's a magic
So this is
question.
supposed to be something that will teach me how to be a better coach, right? If I'm coaching an experienced coach.
Well, that's hopefully what you're going to get out of it,
Yeah.
and everybody else gets out of it. Because I mean, the truth is, if you coach me, you know, I'm going to show up with the intention of getting coached. I really am.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
when things get funky, what's going to happen is I'm going to talk more because I'm nervous, or I'm getting hot. If you're getting close to something, and somebody's saboteurs are going to show up the way they show up, I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk. I'm going to talk. I'm going to, I mean, at my least self-aware, have you ever been in, I think we've all done this before, even if you're not as much of a talker, but have you ever been in company where, so my wife has a home, second wife, she has a home in Concord, Massachusetts. I have a home in upstate New York. I just built a small home, a cabin in New Hampshire. And every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, well, you know, where do you live? And I'm like, well, I've got, and it's, I found myself going like, I've got 3 houses. It's like, it's true, but that's not what I'm trying to express. I'm trying to express, I'm not sure what, like, what are you sending? How long will it get there? And now I'm sending it. It's like, oh my gosh, am I communicating in any way that I'm cool? I've got 3 homes, you know, which, you know, but how have we ever bragged that? Like, you know what? My waistline is this, or I'm 6'4". No, I'm not 6'2". You know, there's a way that we communicate information to make ourselves look special or better. So when you're coaching me, I might say, you know, and I'm imagining me at my worst, right? That you're like, all right, Ron, well, we need to do a visualization. And I might say, oh, well, I've done so many coaching courses that, you know, where I do visualizations, and they don't work when clients do 1, 2, 3. And all I've done is I've just enough shoved you enough to put you on your heels, right? So my scams, my scammers, my saboteurs, my demons have shoved you sufficiently back on your heels so that I'm safe for another 2 minutes or 30 minutes until the call's over. And that to me is the danger with coaching, or the challenge, right? With coaching and the opportunity, right? Because again, like I, you know, kind of did a little demonstration earlier. It's like, but if you can say, Ron, sounds like something's getting stirred in you. I know you're smart. You know, you can be condescending. You're smart. You've traveled the world, or you can be honest. You've traveled the world. You know, you can affirm the little boy in me that needs to be told, yes, you've traveled the world and you've helped a lot of people. Yes, yeah, Ron, you've done those things, truly. And right now you're talking about for 20 years, you've been trying to lose 20 pounds. And so, you know, it's true for all of us. We can know what we know for a long time, but to follow through and do it is tough, isn't it? And in that way, you've put your arm around me. You've not made me feel bad for no reason. You've not allowed yourself to be, by my conscious or likely unconscious attempts to throw my weight around. Good to see you, Fred.
Likewise, thank you so much for this.
You got it. Peace.
Bye.
And that way, you know, you're not letting me throw my weight around, but you're saving me. You're throwing me a lifeline and making it okay for me to be vulnerable in your presence. Ah, what a gift. You know, so then I can now, it's like, ooh, and honestly, what happens, and I don't know if you find this, but I know for me, you know, we all have a sense that a need for security or safety or to feel comfortable, and some people are more apt to give it, and maybe more apt to give it to people that they shouldn't trust. And so if I'm getting your trust, Georgette, it's like, well, you trust everybody, and I just happen to be a more trustworthy person, so it's no, you know, no consequence except for you're all into the coaching. But somebody like me who is a little more slow to question the quality of a coach or a helping professional, or, you know, I can be skeptical about a lot of people. This plumber, okay, he's been doing 20 years. Yes, he's been doing butcher work for the last 20 years, or does he know what he's doing? That's got a great side to it, right? It keeps me from maybe getting burnt. It also has an aspect that keeps me from connecting with people, trusting people, and all the fruits that come out of that. But if you can coach somebody like me, like I say, put your arm around me, see me, and continue to help point me towards the greater good with no feel bads in the process, You've got me, and you can change my life like very few people can. You know, and so when we're talking about coaching personal growth people, to me, the people that you mentioned at the top of our call, those are great. Easy. You don't have to explain what it means, what a perspective really means. Um, you can say, dude, I'm gonna slow down and just help you really be, fully present with and experience this thoughts, emotions, your physical, all that stuff. And you can shorthand it all. And it's like, God, I need that. That's so great. But to me, this call is really about coaching someone like me, who can be a handful. And, we don't want to just be like, not coaching that. You want to be at choice just as much as you want to help me be at choice. Should you decide to coach me, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what else is coming up?
Well, what's coming up is just, again, one of the basic things of the way you were describing for you. Yeah, you've been doing this and you're great at this and da 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 da. Instead of using the word but, use the word and. You know what I mean?
If you're coaching me?
Yeah, let's say I'm coaching you. And so I'm saying, okay, all right, Ron, I know you're this, you're wonderful, you've been doing this for extra years. And now I'm noticing this, as opposed to saying, but I'm noticing this.
It's amazing, right?
It is. That really, really is. I kind of forget about that has a whole different way of landing.
You got to give and I'm, keep using me and sort of a caricature of me, right? But it's, you got to give me my due.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You are this and that. Yes, you are. I'm leaving me now, right? But there's no, you're a good dancer. You've been doing this. You've lost 10 pounds. You've done all these wonderful things. You are. This is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you said you want to lose 20 more pounds, and so here we are. Now what?
Mm-hmm.
Now we're both centered on the game we're playing, rather than, we can worry about helping Ron not have to talk about how long he's been coaching or the house, we can work at that. That's a smaller game. Right now, we're helping Ron become coachable. That's the big ticket item right here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a whole call. Boy, I'd love to talk about that, is how we can get lost on, ancillary or secondary or tertiary issues, important things. It's like, yeah, you could talk about, I've used so many examples with me now, I'm not sure where I am, but the most important example, the most important element in what we're talking about is to recover Ron to himself so he is coachable, not in his ego about houses or places he's traveled. That guy's not coachable.
When you're coaching someone what if they come and they don't really have an agenda for the day, or do you keep pushing them to name something so that you can go back to it during the coaching? Like I'll have clients who say, oh, I don't know, I'm okay, this is all right. And I just don't have, they don't say to me, this is what I want to work on.
Yep. Well, I'm
because
going
if they don't, then it's hard to get back to what you were just talking about, to say,
well,
okay,
that's right.
yeah,
that's right. Often I'll use my pen as an example. It's like the tether point, like, okay, what are we doing today? What do you want? And then we can, we've got that.
yeah.
But I'm gonna poke you, Kara, put you on the spot. What do you do if a client says, I don't know, I don't have an agenda today?
I've had that same struggle myself, and there's been times, especially early on in a coaching relationship, where it's like where I meet them and like, okay, well, let's talk. What's been going on for you? And then it's like we find an agenda together. But that also creates a precedent for a bad habit, that they think that they can come back and do that again and again.
Yeah.
What do you know? We've talked about it too. I mean, I'm putting you on the spot on video and all, but like, what do you know? Whether you can do it or not, or have done it successfully a lot, what do you know?
As far as me being able to do it successfully, not so much, but I mean, honestly, making them like, all right, we're gonna hang up and you're gonna come back when you do have an agenda.
I mean, that's a thing that one can do.
What, really? Have
Well,
you
yeah,
ever
but
done that?
here's the thing is, yeah, well, that's the questions, right? We can all talk tough games like that. You know, Kara owned it. Like, it's not like she's done that. But the point is the, and boy, and I don't like this when people in regardless of industry, they talk about this thing that they do as if it's a normal thing to do. It's not a normal thing, but it's like that becomes, if not the literal expression, at least a subtext of this is how important it is that we have to have a thing. So I'll just back up, and I talk about this all the time because, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is such a pain in the rear end. It is a cousin to what we've been talking about today, in that clearly articulating something you want is dangerous. Why? Because once you've done that, you're exposed. Because now, Georgette, once you say it, even if it's only to yourself, once you admit it to yourself, not to mention me, your coach, once you've admitted it, now you either have to do something with what you know, or face the fact that you aren't as diligent, kind, thoughtful, rigorous,
Discipline.
as you have given yourself the ability to believe. So your self-conception's at danger.
Oh, yeah.
So better to not come clear with an agenda. So when a client doesn't come with an agenda, I mean, the first thing, and you know, the gentleman I mentioned that I'm coaching now is a newer client, and he's just beginning to kind of get it tighter. And you know, he brought an agenda that was like he wanted to talk something over. It's like, great, that's a cool agenda. And I said, great. You know, we're getting closer and closer to like having something meat, MEAT, meaty, that is really useful. I said, but you want a wife? You've got these goals. He's already worth $1 million, but he wants to have 3 million by this and 7 million by that and 10 million in his business by. It's like, great. So what I want you to start doing is looking at, okay, Ron, I want to talk about what's the $3 million plan. Can we start to, because that'll keep us. And so actually I can't shortcut it. Let me just finish, because this is the language that matters. So I want you to do that, Tom, because if you start coming every week with well, let me back up a little bit more. So what I have said and would say to this person is, so come very clear, like, I want to push this conversation forward. I want to do whatever, because he came with those focus areas. This is the primary reason he came to the coaching. So he had better come with an agenda. Well, he should have an agenda. He's got 2 or 3 primary things that he came for the overall agenda of the coaching relationship. So if he doesn't have an agenda, then there's a question of, oh, he doesn't really get it. Like, he didn't get that this is my responsibility. So do a better job in your initial discovery session or whatever, expressing it. But what you should be expressing is, hey man, you want to find a wife, make $1 million and get closer to God, or lose 20 pounds. So every week you should be coming with one of those things that you need to either begin to talk about, or that we're going to continue doing work on, and what you're struggling with in order to make that happen. Does that make sense? And if they, oh yeah, that makes sense. Then even if a week or 2 later, they're still kind of struggling, it's like, hey, what's going on? Well, when you say that, I just kind of feel like we always end up talking anyway. I'm like, yeah, we end up talking, but, and then I'll just use like this as an example. I literally want you to hang up the phone. Oh my gosh, I just realized this. Or I started doing my sit-ups, Ron, and then I just couldn't get myself to go anymore. Wow, what happened? Great. I can't wait to talk to Ron about what the heck this was. Then text me, by the way, and I do that with my clients. Text or call if I'm available. Great. Because I want to have them learn in the moment as quickly as possible, right? Rather than waiting 7 days now until. But even if the agreement was you only talk to your clients once a week, you want them thinking about, I can't wait to talk to Georgette about how I started to do pull-ups or whatever, and then I couldn't even finish. Great. So what your agenda becomes, Paul, is, you know, we're going to still keep moving ahead on your 20-pound plan, or we're going to keep moving ahead on your, you know, you're making $1 million, of course, but your agenda gets to be, Ron, I stopped doing push-ups and I don't know what happened. Like, I don't know why I can't get myself to do this. Can we unpack that? Yeah. So now they're getting multiple examples. And the point that Kara made originally was a great one, because the precedent that happens if you just start coaching them based on, well, we got talking about this, and let's just create something out of what they're talking about. Then they learn they don't need to come with an agenda. They don't need to come prepared. They don't need to be awake throughout the week learning and growing and breaking patterns and establishing new patterns, they don't need to be doing that because they'll just start talking about whatever's here and you'll turn it into an agenda anyway. But that's not going to help them lose the 20 pounds. It's not going to help them get the $1 million. It might help them be more present with what's going on in their lives or be more at choice. But even that's going to crescendo, or it's going to come to an end because we're not working on transformation. We're just working on transactional sessions. Does that help you, Georgette?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
And I find that what happens with me is I'm not always willing to cross that line.
Which line?
Well, the line of challenging what they're saying to me based on what we talked about before, or and I think that's kind of like part of the problem that I have is I want to be liked. I want them to like me. I want them to care. I want them to, and so I will find myself sometimes being, just too willing to let them do that, to let them, let's say, accountability not taken, or well, the way that you can anger your clients, either they're going to go, but they can get angry because you're making them defensive about something.
Well, just so you are, and in a good way, and you're sharing vulnerably is beautiful. You're revealing your own fears, your own psychology, because you're going to make them angry or mad at you, or they're going to be whatever it's like. I had a moment in one of my classes like 20 years ago, that maybe even longer, and it was right when I started feeling more confident about my coaching, and I said something that shocked me, but it has stayed with me as a technique, so to speak. That once in a while I'll pull out, and it was a woman who I was in my late 20s, and she may have been 35, something like that. And I still know her name, which is crazy. Like, her name is burned into my mind. It was that important of a moment. I was coaching her, and I was coaching her in front of a group of 30 people. And she started getting really snappy with me, kind of like, might be a fear of yours, right? Like getting angry. And I said, how old are you? Which you don't ask a woman how old she is, right? We all know that. And she said, 38 or whatever it was. And I said, you've not been handling X for 38 years, and you're going to get mad at me who's trying to help you get it?
And the reaction was?
It was like, it was shock.
Yeah.
And she went, oh, like she got it.
Yeah. So that's the risk that you're taking, but yeah.
But the gift, what I want to give you is, they're expressing it where it's safe to be expressed. And safe is a relative term. It's safe maybe to like slap their wife too, or punch the husband. It's not effective at creating what they want, but it's a way to do it where you can't punch the policeman, you can't punch your jujitsu instructor, but you can get out your bad habits or justify your behavior through somebody who it's safe with. What the permission that I want to offer anybody watching this, and certainly you in this moment, Georgette, is you keep your eye on the prize. The prize is helping transform this individual live out the best version of their life.
Yeah.
And if I'm starting to get sassy or be full of ego about all the things I've done, the people I've met, and what I know, it's like, I got it. And you still weigh 20 pounds more than you want, and you've been struggling with it for 20 years. So I'm glad to hear that this race car driver or this baseball player, and you've traveled all over the world. I get it. What does that have to do with you losing 20 pounds? Fuck you, bitch. How fucking dare you? Blah, blah, blah. My dog's getting up like, whoa, what's going on? But that's like, that's how I'm giving you the worst case scenario. Fuck you, Georgette. You know what? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I got it, Ron. But now you're getting mad at me. You weigh, how much do you weigh? 100 and whatever. Great. You should be weighing this. You don't. That's because you are eating too much. You're not handling whatever it is on your end. I'm pointing it out and pointing out that you're deflecting by talking about what you know and what you've done. It's your pattern. I'm the most faithful person in your life right now trying to help you get this, and you're putting this on me. Do you see that? Can you hold that, Georgette? And that's the game, because if you can't, like, whatever that gap is for you, there's your coaching. That's a coaching agenda for you, is like, okay, who do I need to become in order to? Because I don't mean to sound dramatic. I'm going to say something I'm not quite sure even how it's going to finish, but it's like, until you can do that, well, until you can do that, you're going to do careful coaching.
Careful coaching. Yeah, that's a good term. I don't want to be a careful coach.
You said you don't want to be?
No, I don't really want to be. I mean, I'm not saying that this is always the way it is, but I can be influenced by someone's personality, or, you know, if I feel the least bit inhibited by them or something because of their status. So I just have to get rid of that part.
Yep. You'll do your work. I'm sure you will. You know, now that the wheels are turning, but it's, I remember, so I didn't go to college, and I've said this 100 times on these calls and different calls, but, you know, I always had this thing that I was too young and that I didn't go to college. I had that. I dragged around like I'm some kind of ignoramus or, you know, whatever. And I remember being hired by a guy, his name just popped in my mind again. This is 20 or so years ago. And, he was sort of the stereotype of, you know, certainly where I'm from, East Coast education, right? Harvard, Glee Club, you know, Dean's List, this and that, and all that stuff. And it manifested. I'll tell you the story of how it manifested. Ultimately, that slapped me in the face and woke me up to my own species and expression of what you're describing, and sort of that fear of upsetting somebody. Mine wasn't I was afraid of upset him. Mine was afraid to be exposed at what a loser I am. So I had to like be this and do that and give value. I acknowledged him. You are so bold, or you are, boy, you're brave, right? Boy, you are. Every call, he called me out. He literally said to me, "Oh, it's the end of the call. I guess you're going to acknowledge me."
Ooh, really?
Really.
Ooh.
It was, I was naked. I was exposed.
Yeah.
Don't remember what I said. I fumbled and probably made up some bullshit. You know, well, it's a day cigar, the coaching is a, you know, who the hell knows what I said, but it was hot in that kitchen. We'll never forget. And what it did is it put right on my lap is, oh, you got to become okay with you, Ron. Coach him. Doesn't matter if he's a Glee Club, Harvard 4.0, and you graduated high school. It doesn't matter. You got to do your own work. And that's what qualifies you to be, that's what gets you in the door and has you be a masterful coach and lets you change lives. So same thing with you, Georgette. And what I want you to know is with, you know, with all of our weaknesses, there's a corresponding strength. You know, that you are maybe really spacious or fun or easygoing, and it's just easy to have a conversation because it's going to be no pressure. It's just like whatever goes. But in that is whatever goes, and stuff goes under that bridge that shouldn't, because you're afraid to name it. And there's like the sin, so to speak. Sin being an archer's term for missing the mark. That's the sin in your strength. So as long as you become aware of it, now you're conscious, and now it's going to start eating you up when you don't speak.
Right.
So now you're in business. Now you're going to start noticing, oh, I have to trust myself more. I've got to trust coaching, or I've got to design my relationship with this person a little bit better, so that. Great stuff. This is transformation here.
Yeah, well, it is. And I know at the end of the session how I feel about it. And I will sit and think, okay, you know, how did I do this time and what didn't I do? I do that all the time just to make notes to myself. And so I don't like it when I'm writing something down that says, well, I did it again. I did it again. I let them talk on and on and on. And, you know, I acknowledge, but, you know, I didn't challenge them. I didn't challenge them enough or whatever. So, yeah.
Frame it to advance this conversation for you. what do you know, just without working too hard? Okay, I'm Georgette. My work to get over this, to be a better coach, to be a better human being, but to be a really effective coach, I have to what?
You
And
know,
what's the
Matt,
work you've got to do? Not like I've got to intrude on my clients or I've got to be, willing. If you tell me that, I'm just going to say, so what do you have to do in order to do that? So what's the work you have to do to show up how you want?
well, the word is willing.
Great.
Am I willing when that comes up and I notice that I'm doing it?
There's a gap for you. Do you mind me kind of like pushing you with a couple coaching questions?
No, please go
Okay.
ahead.
And then Kara will turn it back over and we'll wrap up. But there's a gap for you because in this moment right here, you're willing, you want to do, you would do that for me. You would want that. I mean, yes. But then a moment comes up that and you don't or you can't. What's the quality? Like who do you have to be in order to exercise that will?
I have to trust myself. I have to trust the client. I have to trust the concepts of coaching and that they are transformational. And I mean, I've seen it happen. I've experienced it as well.
So if we had more time to coach and we don't,
Yeah.
but here's
Yeah.
places that can I point you where I think would be
Oh,
useful?
sure, absolutely.
It's certainly around trusting yourself, right? Got to start there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And coaching, does that mean you need to hire a coach? Does that mean you need to do more coach? Like, I'm not sure, to like begin to trust that process more, right?
Yeah.
So there's something there, I'm guessing. But I would want you to begin to get some elbow room around what does that mean, trust myself? How does that manifest? What does it look like? And then there's going to be something underneath like, well, what is it, who do I have to be? I'm going to probably ratchet a little further down to trust myself is, what is the quality of self-trust? It's, self-love. I don't know, but it might be just self-trust, and we'd find out where it lives in you, how you manifest it. You have to practice things that exercise a degree of self-trust, and that you see that it's safe, that you can handle the person at the cashier having to deal with your $2 bill or your Sacagawea dollar. That's like, it's like, yeah, I'm okay. She can be pissy. She can do whatever. I'm not worried about her comfort. This is legal tender and I'm okay. It's like, it's like there will be moments like that where you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
disappoint people and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Great.
Kara, and we're going to come back to you, Georgette, and what you're most walking away with. But Kara,
Okay.
you get the most spacious final word, and then we'll go to me and Georgette. And
Oh, I resonate with Georgette a lot because I'm very similar. And so I was just thinking to myself, and it was funny, I was thinking in the context of your recent email, Ron, about not talking about what you don't want, because I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be a careful coach. And so I was trying to flip that in my mind to saying like, I want to elevate to something higher or something more impactful than just a careful coach.
Mm-hmm.
great. And then we can say, who do you need to be in order to elevate to that? And now the whole conversation's different. Keep
Yeah.
going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a level of confidence and yeah, self-trust. I definitely resonate with that, but confidence, yes, willingness is a great word. Something around like a perseverance, like, because there's a barrier for myself of like pushing through that and, you know, yeah, pushing through willingness, persevering to get to that place of being able to then push my client and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Well, I love that this conversation evolved into this. And I think, what you both are wrestling with or playing with here it was in my experience all the more heightened with, well, not only people who I thought were better than me because they had formal secondary education, but personal growth people who were older than me, who were coaches, and I was just coaching for 2 years, and they'd done Landmark, and when it was eshed in 1979, and it's like, okay, and I've been coaching for 3 weeks or 4 years, and yeah, and so there's a million ways in which we subjugate ourselves and elevate others beyond what anybody should be doing to them, and my wife and I, actually, I'll say this and then actually remind me about the conversation my wife and I were just having about what the main thing is. But Georgette, have your final word, and then I'll throw mine in and we'll call it a show.
Just again, the realization that I know what the answers are. I know what I need to do.
Like every client, by the way. But
Yeah, like every client, I know what I need to do, and I need to take that step over where usually I'll stop and pull back, like you were saying, I'll pull back gently, quietly, whatever I do. And just be willing to not do that and to stand up and to challenge. And I think it's something that takes practice for me, just because, again, I have done it. I know what it feels like, but if I don't do it for a while, so it's the consistency, to establish a better pattern.
Yeah.
I know about those lousy patterns.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. My final words, and then I'll cut us off for the day, is my wife and I were talking about teaching a coaching course together, as well as a course for couples. And her contribution were many and whatever, but I kept saying, we have got to keep, my piece was, we've got to keep the main thing. The main thing is what, the outcome for those folks out there, in the workshop. And as long as we do that, then the dance between us is going to be informed. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about, and the same thing, I think, for us, softening lousy language. The same thing for us. Who do we need to be in order to keep the main thing, which is helping Ron see his patterns, his willingness to go on about how beautiful he is, or whatever else. It's like, no, you've traveled no wonderful places. No interesting people. It's all ego. You want to lose 20 pounds. Tell me about that guy. For you to not be impressed by anything, because it's not that, none of it is that impressive. It's a paltry, all of us have a very paltry list at the end of the day when we want to try to impress people about how wonderful we are. You need to be you. And yesterday's version is not sufficient, and it's not that impressive relative to the man that you could be. That's the person I'm interested in talking to. And so to me, the more that we can see that and care about that, even when I can't see it or I'm not looking there, now you're going to talk to my heart, and you're going to zap me in ways that, other people can't. And you're going to give me a gift, by the way, that people who are just yes and so smitten with, this guy's a NASCAR driver, or this person's done this, or this person has got 4 PhD. Who cares? You're still fucking fat. So what are you going to do about it? I don't care. Your PhDs haven't gotten the weight off. So what are you going to do? And Kara, we've talked about this, but to love them enough to do that. And then be gentle enough to receive what's left, which is going to be the person and not the shell, the mask, the fence, the shroud that covers them. Anyway.
I have to say one more thing.
Okay.
I have to say one more thing, which is, I went into coaching. I retired. I went into coaching. I wanted it to be something satisfying, purposeful, that I was helping people. But okay. And what I'm realizing is, by being the what do we call it? The nice coach, the
careful coach.
Careful coach. I don't come across feeling that way.
No, it's so unsatisfying.
It's not satisfying for me either, but I kind of go, okay, we went through that and that was fine, but I don't really look forward in the way that I want to as a coach, which is what I do, and I'm thinking, yeah, because you're not transforming this that way. I know when I'm feeling the satisfaction and when I'm not. So, and I know why. And thank you, because this was good to just kind of unpack that for me.
Powerful testimony, Georgette. Great work today.
All right. Always great. Great to see you. Bye.
Everybody be good. Coach Uncompromised. And we'll talk to you in a few weeks or a couple months or so when we do it again.
Okay. Great.
All right.
Great.
See ya.